You're watching RTV News with me, Jane Mutoni. President Paul Kagame has urged African leaders to ensure that any hindrances in the operations of the African Continental Free Trade Area are eliminated so that the opportunities in presence are properly utilized. The Public Accounts Committee has had an analysis and tabling of the report on general accounts of public institutions and how far they have gone in the implementing of the 2021-2022 national budget. A very warm welcome to the news in details now. President Paul Kagame has stressed that the world, especially developing nations, cannot afford to wait for the next major global pandemic to hit in order to deal with its consequences and should instead take a proactive stance on the matter. The president made the remarks while taking part in a panel discussion at the World Economic Forum on preparing for the next pandemic. He also noted that the COVID-19 pandemic has been a bitter lesson for Africa.
Well, thank you, Borgi.
On Tuesday morning, President Paul Kagame chaired a breakfast gathering of African leaders and friends of Africa on the African Continental Free Trade Area and its role in fast-tracking economic growth and transforming the continent. The Rwandan head of state pointed out that the journey to the creation of the free trade area has not been an easy one because change is rarely a simple or straightforward matter.
With time, there was a huge improvement that Africa accepted reforms and also accepted that first we need to have even private sector-led economies where the private sector started taking center stage and so on and so forth. So that is a bit of the background. And then 2015 is when really there was a revitalization of this need to see Africa, strengthen ourselves in unity and work with each other more and trade and increase what the trade should be within the continent. And later on, of course, that will happen also with the partners across the world. I don't mean, on the CFTA doesn't mean just trading or doing business only within Africa, but Africa and the rest of the world. So then 2016, really that's when Africa decided to have a champion, and thanks to the former president of Niger, who was chosen to lead that process in 2016, champion trade and CFTA on our continent. And that's when the process started and was moving very fast. At the same time, around that time, that's when I was also chosen to lead reforms across our continent and the institutions of Africa. So we worked together very closely, but Issouf, really former President Issouf of Niger, did a lot of work to have this come together, working with other African leaders. We saw this. And in a short time, 2018, when I was the chair, we saw the adoption by leaders of this free trade area, the largest in the world.
The African leader also pointed out that the journey is by no means over and in many respects has only just begun.
We need to really make it a full reality, which it isn't yet. We need to tackle a number of things, especially in the area of non-tariff barriers. There's still, there is still slowness we could move faster. I think this is maybe, for me, the most important thing. The fact that we have it, but it is not working fully to our satisfaction. We need to do more, and we can do more. There is a lot we can do. And allowing free movement of people and goods and services, these small things matter a lot. Visa restrictions or remove of those restrictions and so on, and Africa working, and then allowing the young people of our continent, who constitute the biggest majority of our population, around 70% of our populations in Africa counted as, the young people we should be talking about. So in the area of innovation and working together, so many things. I think we need to really show the political will and put it to work and make sure that things work, because they are working for us in the end. And then when they have worked for us, we work very well with the rest of the world to our benefit, so that we see the intra-African trade go up as much as we can, and that is absolutely necessary. And then at the same time, increasing trade with the rest of the world. It's already high anyway, but we need to just bring up the levels of intra-African trade.
Trade between African countries has continued to account for less than 20% of the continent's trade in general, and the African Continental Free Trade Area has the potential to raise that intra-trade to 33%, while more importantly reducing the continent's overall trade deficit by a minimum of 51%.
Sorry for a little mix-up. President Paul Kagame has stressed that the world, especially developing nations, cannot afford to wait for the next major global pandemic to hit in order to deal with its consequences, and should instead take a proactive stance on the matter. The president made the remarks while taking part in a panel discussion at the World Economic Forum on preparing for the next pandemic. He also noted that the COVID-19 pandemic has been a bitter lesson for Africa.
If you look at across Africa, only on average 18% of the populations have been vaccinated. Now, that's a small number. And the reason is that we did not invest enough in public health systems. Because even when people received the vaccines, they were not able to administer them. Some of them actually got spoiled in stores. So that speaks to the fact that there are certain investments we have to make, even our national budgets we have to. I know our countries, developing countries, have many priorities, and but health, investing in health and health systems must be one of those priorities.
The African leader also emphasized that the political will must exist on the continent to be ready and willing to tackle multiple issues at the same time, giving Rwanda's experiences an example.
In our experience in my country, in Rwanda, we have been hard-pressed to find solutions for many problems that have come almost at the same time. And in fact, we've not been able sometimes to identify which is a priority and which one is not. So everything is a priority. So you have to think about this, as well as looking at the resources available, many times limited, but the people that must be served must be part of that solution when you are thinking about the outcomes and where you want to go. So the leadership that is therefore required is to understand the problem specifically, but how do you even introduce the efficiency, that prioritization as to what needs to come to be in place first before you get to another, even in such a difficult situations, and being driven by the outcomes you want, but also being able to measure at every step, what are you doing? Does it need to change at a certain point? Do you need to do things differently and therefore, or continue the other one and do it better? So it's a broad question, but leadership has to be there. It has to be confronting the problem without excuses.
On Tuesday, on behalf of His Excellency Paul Kagame, Prime Minister Dr. Edouard Ngirente attended the opening ceremony of the Africa Development Bank Group 57th annual meetings in Accra, Ghana. He took part in a presidential panel dialogue on Africa's development challenges and opportunities, and the Rwandan Prime Minister made certain observations on the need for decisive action when dealing with such challenges and making the most of opportunities.
Go back to...
As you know, before COVID, our economic growth was around 9.5%. Of course, with COVID, everything went down. But I can tell you and share with you our experience that even during COVID, of course, we're having different lockdowns and then stopping activities. But in some rural areas, we decided to say, if the cities are not working properly because of COVID, but some remote areas, there were no many cases of COVID, so we decided to go there and start, investing there. And this is why we're able to build, in that period of the first 9 months of COVID, we were able to build 22,000 classrooms because we wanted money to be circulating over there and to support that education sector. And that's because we believe in human capital development. But in addition to that, our recovery process was driven by a program we put in place, which is called, of course, the recovery program, composed of 3 or 4 key elements I'm going to mention. One is the recovery fund, which is kind of an amount of money we are putting in place to help those most hit sectors, which include hospitality, hotels, and other economic activities. That was the first phase of the recovery fund. And now, last week, I've launched a second phase of recovery fund, which is going to be really helping different sectors from the big activity to those small businesses. The second one I can mention is that with COVID, you have learned something very important. You have learned that there are some products you don't produce locally in Rwanda, where you have that capacity to do so. And we have called them must-have products. And what we have done, we have listed them, and I have put in place a list of incentives to tell people, if you come and want to invest in this subsector, you have this list of incentives, but you have also a time frame. Those activities have to be done within 2 years, not more than 2 years since the adoption. And that's a program we call Manufacture and Ability to Recover. And it gives people incentive from tax incentive and non-tax incentives. And so far, we have registered more than 90 projects in the manufacturing sector. And that's going to help. And that's going to help to create jobs. And our plan and our projection is that program is going to create more than 30,000 jobs in Rwanda. The third element is the subsidy we have given to the support to agriculture sector. As you know, we have been trying to attract young people, youth in agriculture sector, but to be able to attract, to make it attractive sector, you have to show people that that sector is profitable. And what we have done is to make sure that there is financing in that sector, and we're trying to put in place a project which will lower the interest rate to a single-digit interest rate. And that project is there, and at least people can know that if you go to invest in agriculture, you will have at least funding at lower cost. The second support to agriculture was the seed production. We have given ourselves a target that by end of 2021, Rwanda won't import again the seeds. Now we have achieved that program, and we produce all agricultural seed locally in Rwanda, and that has helped us to lower the cost of production, because we used to import every season. We used to spend more than 8 billion francs by importing seeds. The fourth one, agricultural support, is we have seen that with this global crisis, we used to import fertilizers like other African countries, and we have decided to put in place now a plant to produce our fertilizers locally, because that is an input we need in agriculture. The plant will be complete, I think. From now, 1 year, we have that plant producing fertilizers in Rwanda. The fourth element, which is an issue in the whole in our African continent, is post-harvest handling. You know, we have that number, which is really alarming, that on every production, Africa will lose 40% of our production is lost during the post-harvest management. And in Rwanda, we are trying to invest heavily in the post-harvest management process to make sure that the whole value chain is well managed.
The gathering has brought together more than 3,000 delegates and is the first to take place in this way in the last 2 years due to the COVID-19 restrictions that were enforced. Moving on, Public Accounts Committee had an analysis and tabling of the report on general accounts of public institutions and how far they have gone in implementing the 2021-2022 national budget. Now, two provinces and Kigali City took the lead, where the budget implementation rate was found to be 79%. Take a look. With the help of technology, the Western Province was the first of the other institutions to be heard today. Of the 551 million allocated for provincial activities as of May this year, 440.1 million have been spent, or 79.9%. In any case, the province will return to the state coffers 50 million, which was allocated to the salaries of the workers. Deputies are wondering what happened in order to have such a large surplus, yet salaries for all employees were put aside until June. In 2021-2022 fiscal year, 7 districts of the Western Province were allocated 180 billion, which has been used at a rate of 79.5%. The implementation of the budget in Rutsiro district was less than 75%, while they request to be given 204.9 billion in the next year's fiscal budget. A gap for 110.6 million was identified in terms of monitoring and coordinating activities for the province. Western Province Governor Habitegeko Francois says that the unique nature of the province is one of the reasons why its coordination is complex.
As you know, we have a long border frontier which requires constant monitoring, as it is prone to issues at any time. Plus, the nature of the province does not enable us to easily solve some issues. For example, this is the only province where people go to a certain part of the province to retrieve information and they are unable to return that day, hence having to spend more time there. Secondly, we have people living on islands, and you all know how water transport is costly, so it's difficult for them to follow up on government plans.
In general, the Western Province is still facing financial difficulties in the next budget. At the top, there is an issue of stunting in the province at a rate of 44%, as in Gorero district, it is at a rate of 50%. This province still has the largest number of children with stunting in the country. There's also an issue of delays in the construction of roads or need to be repaired, whereby in Gishwati, due to unrepaired roads, 12,000 litres of milk reach the market when there are less than 2,000 litres. The province is also more prone to disasters than elsewhere, and this is why special attention should be paid to dealing with them. On the other hand, in this fiscal year, the province has 62 projects worth 23.8 billion Rwandan francs, which was the target for this fiscal year 2021-2022. 20 billion has been allocated so far in May, and 16.1 billion has been spent. 68 projects are planned for the fiscal year 2022-2023, worth 41.8 billion. The Public Accounts Committee also welcomed Kigali's representatives to various projects in the city that have been implemented at a rate of 79.3%, particularly the second Rwanda Urban Development Project, which has already been implemented at a rate of 37%. The budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 for Kigali is estimated at 127.6 billion Rwandan francs. The city of Kigali also aims to generate 40 billion in the current fiscal year, of which 32 billion or 78% has already been collected. Deputies are demanding that the gaps in the implementation of the budget be funded so that projects can be implemented. The Vice Mayor in charge of socio-economic affairs in the city of Kigali, Rugeni Martin, says that with the little time left for this fiscal year to end, that it does not preclude certain activities from taking place, hence improving the percentage of budget expenditures. We will look at how we can increase tax revenue so that we can increase the rate we have on revenue. Not only that, there are other activities we are doing to see how we can increase that tax by working especially with PSF. Currently, we are in the process of conducting a census of business operators from the grassroots level so that at least we can have a clear data. In addition to the city of Kigali and the Western Province, which were received by the Public Accounts Committee, the Southern Province, which received 176 billion Rwandan francs, of which 82% was spent up to May. In general, the Western Province and Kigali City was received by the legislature, and it was revealed that there are projects that were related to those of other institutions, and there are other projects that will be passed in the budget of the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Moving on, the issue of ineffective service provision in regards to land and civic status complication has compelled senatorial members of the Committee on Political and Good Governance to embark on a 2-week journey all over the country, in which there will be discussions in local authorities in an effort to meet the goal of good service provision at a rate of 100% by 2024. Precious Chirezi has this report.
Residents of Gicumbi district believe more has to be done to polish the quality of services they're provided in regards to their civil status and residency based on how unsatisfied service providers are leaving them currently.
I would prefer to get an explanation on what requirement I'm lacking and how to fulfill them, rather than have my documentation unattended until a missing piece is pointed out at the last minute.
I used to notice residents going to acquire land deeds and not having them availed immediately, but I believe that was corrected because I haven't heard that complaint in a while. Statistics in the district show that 233 resident requests were approved. However, 127 were sidetracked because the requirements they need to be serviced were incomplete. The senators expressed concern over the time the residents are wasting pursuing services they're not eligible to receive. The branch manager of the one-stop center in Gicumbi says it is very costly for residents to put all the requirements together. The senators evaluating the quality of civil service provision have found that some of the recurring problems in that sector include not registering their children, with last year alone resulting in 23,000 unwanted teen pregnancies, with most minors not sure about the identities of the people that assaulted them, making the registration of their babies difficult. Approximately 5% of the mothers have home births and don't register them, and 57% of the residents don't register deceased loved ones. Here's what the chairman of the committee had to say about it.
After visiting one-stop centers and local authorities to evaluate the extent of this problem, we intend to conduct nationwide discussions with the concerned ministries to figure out the best way to resolve these issues.
The mayor of Gicumbi says more effort will be put in certain aspects of their service provision based on the feedback they were given by the senators.
Poor service is derived from having mismatched information and asked for requirements that aren't necessary to receive the services that they are seeking. Not sharing information is one of the reasons residents regard us as bad service providers, but the new technological developments ease the whole process. The journey that the senators have started began this Tuesday, and they'll be visiting Gicumbi and Burera in the northern province, Muhanga and Nyaruguru in the southern province, Nyabihu and Karongi in the western province, Nyagatare and Kirehe in the eastern province, as well as Nyarugenge and Kicukiro in the city of Kigali. Precious Chirezi, RTV News.
Thank you, Precious, for that report. Now, with more than 1,000 members of private sectors expected to attend the Commonwealth Business Forum in Kigali in June, Tanzania's business community is looking forward to the gathering because of the opportunities it will present.
Rwanda's ambassador to Tanzania, Major General Charles Karamba, met with the businessmen and women as part of discussions organized by the CEO Roundtable Professional Business Group of that country and urged them not to waste the opportunities the gathering in June will present.
Rwanda and Tanzania share a lot in common, especially in terms of doing business, trade and transport facilitation and collaborations. Geographical co-positioning, as we are immediate neighbors and both of us are members of the East African community, but also the Commonwealth family brings us together. It is therefore important that members from the Tanzania business fraternity, especially the CEOs Roundtable, take part in this very important forum so as to enhance collaboration linkages with our Rwandan counterparts, but also to share experience with business players from elsewhere and discover new markets and opportunities across the Commonwealth.
The business community in Tanzania realizes that with the major economic challenges now facing the region, the continent and indeed the world, the gathering in Kigali will present invaluable opportunities to agree on resolutions to address them.
In Tanzania, the CEO Roundtable wants to continue to expand our emphasis, but with good collaboration with the ministry. In this case, we want to have good collaboration with the partners of Commonwealth. What do business leaders want? We want consistency. We want a world which is more fair. We want a world which is more balanced. And I hope through the Africa Free Trade Agreement, through the meeting we are having in Rwanda, the leaders who get together are going to be able to bring more stability. Because in the current volatility, the policy stability is an anchor for growth. So I think from a business perspective, that is going to be a big demand as we present ourselves in the upcoming meeting.
The Commonwealth Business Forum will take place as Rwanda hosts the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in less than a month.
735 former fighters and civilians that used to collaborate with armed groups from the Eastern DRC have completed a 2.5-year training course at the Motobo Demobilization and Reintegration Center in Musanze district of the northern province of Rwanda. Now, these former fighters are determined to work with others and rebuild the country and ask those still in the forest to return back home. Ghislaine Mugwaniz has this report.
During the 2.5 years these former fighters spent in Motobo Demobilization and Reintegration Center, they underwent courses in civic education and technical and vocational training to give them skills that can help them to make a living and improve their lives. They have said that this will help them to live with other Rwandans.
We felt happy in this center. We are grateful to the government of Rwanda and also to President Paul Kagame for what he has done for us, because as people who are planning to attack the country, we don't deserve this. But this shows that we are in the wrong path, and that's shameful. We are going to become trainers outside here, meaning that we shall teach others what we learned from here. That is the message we are taking home. We shall start by living in harmony with our neighbors, and if possible, we shall teach them even beyond what they know.
They have also said that after testifying what Rwanda has achieved so far, they're not ashamed to urge others to come back home.
What I can tell those that are still in armed groups is to come back home, because they think that coming back home is equal to death. But I can tell those who have smartphones to see what has happened here in Motobo and see how we have been well taken care of.
The chairperson of Rwanda Demobilization and Reintegration Commission, Honorable Valerinia Habineza, has said that these former fighters underwent trainings and counseling. Therefore, no one should be afraid of them. Do not be afraid of them. Instead, welcome them and introduce them to the government programs and contribute with them in building the nation. The Minister of Local Government, Jean-Marie Vianney Gatabazi, has urged the group to let go of the past and look to the future.
Instead of thinking about the time wasted, they should use the chances offered by the country and make them productive. They start finding jobs, use their hands and knowledge. They can create their own jobs. Those who learned about sewing can make clothes and bring made in Rwanda clothes on the market. Those with construction skills can construct in urban or rural areas. We are asking local residents to trust them as discharged good people and give them those chances to be productive. Another thing we ask these discharged former fighters is never to think of destabilizing the country ever again. And those still in the armed groups, we urge them to come back home and contribute in building their country.
Since 2001, the Motobo Demobilization and Reintegration Center has trained 12,274 former fighters from armed groups. Ghislaine Mugwaniza, RTV News.
Thank you, Ghislaine. On Tuesday, executives from the BK Group PLC, the management of the Kigali Arena, and officials from the Rwanda Development Board signed an agreement changing the name of the Kigali Arena to BK Arena. The deal is meant to help boost investment in the country's sports and entertainment sector, bringing closer the goal of making Rwanda an African sports and entertainment hub. The agreement will last 6 years and is worth $7 million.
We believe this naming rights, this partnership is going to strengthen our brand as Bank of Kigali. And we believe it's also going to strengthen the connection that BK as a brand has with the youth. Because what happens in this arena, in BK Arena, is mainly sports and entertainment, and this is where we'll find a lot of youth. So we want youth to know our brand, to think about BK when they want to do transactions, when they want to open an account, when they want to think in insurance or technology. And we believe if we are able to capture a very large market share in the youth, it will be very beneficial for us now and in the long term. So I think this partnership is encompassing even what we're doing with Feraba, because we're enabling them to pay for venues like this one to host their events. So the agreement we have with QA is that they will also have to host many of Feraba's games, because it would have been very expensive for them to host their games here. Now with this agreement, not only Feraba will be able to have some games hosted here, but also many of our local celebrities in the music industry will be able also to host concerts here. And we believe this will drive the traffic in the BK Arena, which is very beneficial for QA, for the government, but also for Bank of Kigali. So I think, first of all, they're going to have more access to this place, because if you remember well, we have not seen many local events happening here. So with this partnership, what you're telling QA, please bring more local events here within BK Arena. And we believe this place is going to be very busy. We see high traffic. And the more we see traffic, the more our brand will be visible. And we hope also we'll have more clients and more people buying our services.
Well, there you have it. On behalf of the entire news production team, thank you so much for your company. I'm Jane Mutoni. Bye for now.